Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the Flat Earth Debate pre-show and after-show goodness. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below this video. You can also check out nathanoakley.com and join the community forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Now, we're currently not joined by anybody, but I wanted to play out a video, not very great English, a video by Slick James Johnson, which he released yesterday after my appearance on Globebusters, and he pretty much sums up my feelings about it fairly concisely. There's a few things here and there that I don't quite agree with him on, but nevertheless, I thought it would be a way to intro this stream. So check it out. I'll put that up on now. I'll put myself on mute, and hopefully by the time the video plays out, there'll be a few guests arriving in the hangout, and I'll introduce them as they do. So without further ado, enjoy the dulcet tones of Slick James Johnson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. Today I am doing a video as part of My Thoughts, the series on My Thoughts. Today's show is about Globebusters. It's about today's show, in fact. Today is Sunday, March 3rd, 2019. Okay, I was watching that show today, and there's a lot of controversy going on right now with this Behind the Curve documentary that came out. There's a lot of buzz going around that Bob Nodell of FE Core was talking about, doing some tests and discovering a 15-degree rotation, which everyone is saying that is Earth spin. So that is the controversy going on right now. So Nathan Oakley was asked to come on the show so that he could help them understand the scientific method and to show them where they went wrong with these tests that they were doing. So Nathan came on the show and he put together a very nice presentation about the scientific method and how it worked. And he was trying to explain to them that what they did and their test was not scientific. And he did an amazing job of explaining that to them. I mean, it was very, very good, very well thought out, very well spoken. So after he finished, Bob Nodell and his FE Core crew basically started doing the same exact thing that got him into trouble in the first place. They started talking about experiments that weren't experiments, science that wasn't science. And Nathan kept trying to tell them, guys, you're not hearing what I'm saying here, because I just finished explaining to you what you are calling science isn't science. Bob brought up a presentation about that experiment, Sanyak experiment, and Nathan was explaining to them that that's not an experiment. That's men in white coats making declarations. Just because somebody is in a white coat and makes a declaration for flat earth, that doesn't mean that wait a minute, let me say that again. Just because people make declarations, they have lab coats on and they make declarations on the globe side, that doesn't make them correct. But what also is not correct is people on the flat earth side in white coats making declarations. What Nathan was trying to explain to them is that the Sanyak experiment wasn't really an experiment. Just because it benefited flat earth, it still wasn't valid. In other words, what's not valid on one side is still not valid on the other side. Now, this seems to have upset Bob, because Bob wants his cake. You understand? So the irony of today's show was that Nathan was there to basically help him. You see, if Bob would have understood the scientific method, he would have never gotten himself into this mess in the first place. So Nathan comes on the show to help him understand why he got himself into this mess. Now, you would think that Bob would be grateful for that, but that didn't happen. He basically ended up telling Nathan off, basically. You don't come on my show and you don't do this and you don't, and Nathan basically just left the show, which I don't blame him. In that particular instance, I don't blame him. So, but the irony is that Nathan was there to help you, and you turned on him and proceeded. You basically proceeded to push the idea that you messed up, made a mistake, and now you're doubling down on that mistake. Listen, I've watched a lot of videos since that happened, and there's a lot of people screaming for Bob, get out of Flat Earth. You don't represent us. You're a shill. You work for Globe, And I'm listening to all of this stuff, and I was basically, I was really feeling bad for Bob. I was like, man, the whole world's done turned on this guy. That's really a rough place to be. And I'm thinking, he's taking it on the chin. He's not letting it bother him. He's still hanging in there. He's still going to do his thing. And, But after what I saw today, that display that I saw today, Bob, you have no idea the damage that you just did to yourself with that display. I was in the chat. I was on the show in the chat, and I was saying, Bob, you're your worst enemy. Next thing you know, I'm blocked. Now, there was all kinds of stuff going on in the chat, talking about, Bob, you're wrong. Bob, you're this, you're that. But nobody was getting, timed out and blocked, but I was cut right out of there, which is fine. I mean, that's how that goes. But I don't understand what's happening here. I feel bad for Nathan because, like I said, Nathan he did an excellent job. He was really proud of the fact that he was going to go on that show and make sense of what science has done. Globe Science has totally butchered the scientific method. And what Bob Nodell did today is said, I'm going to butcher the scientific method too. I have to. I'm invested in this now. We've got ring laser gyros. We bought them. This one guy just invented one. You just invented something. You made something that you are going to call scientific. You are going to rely on this homemade device. Excuse me, that's I live right by the river. That's one of those jet skis. If you hear that flying by the window, I'll just pause for a second. But anyway, see, this is what happens. What the Globebusters are doing is they are now being Globe promoters because they have so much invested. Just like real Globe people, they've got so much invested in 2,000 years of indoctrination and textbooks that they can't turn back. And now what Bob Nodell and Globebusters and F.E. Core is doing, they got so much invested now, they can't turn back. So now they get triggered. Now all of a sudden, when you start speaking against what they're doing, now they're getting upset because they've got one goal in mind. They've got one goal in mind and what they're doing. They don't care about the results. You understand? In other words, this is what I'm saying. When you conduct science, you're going to discover something. You're not going to prove your point. See, this is what Jaron and Bob and Effie Core and all these guys are doing. They're trying to prove their point. That is not science. Anybody should know that. When you do science, you go in and you don't care what the result is. You're not biased one way or another. You're looking for the cause of an effect. But Bob Nodell is biased because he is looking for one result. And it's clouding his judgment. See? So yeah, this is I I had to stop what I was doing. I stopped the show. I said I got to make a video about this. This is unbelievable what's going on here. But yeah, you got people in the flat earth community calling for Bob to get out. And when someone comes along to his aid to help him out, to make him understand that he made a legitimate mistake and why, he turns on that person. So, Bob, what can anybody do for you? Guy, listen, this is just my personal opinion, but the best thing that Globebusters and FE Core can all do right now is just disappear. Take your gyroscopes and your tests and experiments and go do them in your backyard. But trying to present yourselves as mainstream frontline flat earth people, but yeah, I just don't understand. This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Bob showed his true colors. Shout out to Nathan Oakley. I'm proud of what you did, man. I know that feels bad when you set out to do something in the cause of right and good and end up getting turned on, by a large group of people. That show has a large audience. So now you've got, I'm sure, half of that audience thinking Nathan is the bad guy here. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those people that just jump on bandwagons and I'm, pro. No. I take things from. I do things and try to understand things based on the merit of that particular instance. I'm not always on Nathan's side. So I'll jump on Nathan just as fast as anybody else. He knows that. If I think he's wrong about something, I'm lighting into him just like I would anybody else. So this is not a thing that I'm just being pro Nathan, but in this particular instance, Nathan was absolutely correct and Bob could not have been more wrong. That was absolutely, I'm just repeating myself now. But these experiments that you got yourselves invested in, you're trying to invent phenomena. You're trying to create a reason to go looking for something. That's not how science works. The scientific method is just like it should be. You observe a natural phenomena. Now, if you observe a natural phenomena and you can't vary the variables to show cause and effect, then you just need to accept that phenomena for what it is. Don't put a name on it. Don't try to understand it because you can't. You can't just say, well, we have this phenomena, but there's no way we can test it, so we will just, we'll put a name on that observation, call it science, and let's move on. See, that's what the globe side has done. That's what they have done. Taken science and butchered it, and now we have the heliocentric model, all from butchering science. Nathan came on that show today to save these guys from themselves, from butchering science. But they're globe people now. It doesn't matter what your cause is or what you're fighting for. You might as well be globe people now because now you've got this investment. See, this is why I say, and I'll reiterate it again, the earth presents itself as flat and motionless. That's a 100% fact. Now, you know why I can stand by that and I don't have to worry about that? I don't have anything invested in that. I didn't go spend $1 million and invest in experiments to prove that the earth presents itself as flat and motionless. It does, all by itself. I don't have to do anything. And then people accuse me of being lazy because I don't go out and work. You should go out and do this and do that. For what? What am I going to do all of these things for? so that I can have an investment in something, and if it turns out not to be what I am invested in, now I'm stuck with it? Now I have to stick by it? No. Let the earth do its job. The earth knows how to present itself. It doesn't need all of these lab coat people to try to explain it and try to understand it and put it in their textbooks. The earth does what it does with or without you. The earth did what it did. It presented itself as flat and motionless before man ever came along. How do you think the earth got along without you before you got here in your experiments? See? You know, man is basically the enemy of nature. You got to just pick. The earth presents itself as flat and motionless, period. The sky presents itself as rotating overhead. Unless you can establish some variables to show cause and effect, then you just have to let that be. You can't say, well, you know, we can't manipulate, so we'll just build a model and manipulate that and apply that to the earth. Okay, listen, see.
Stuff probably went on, and after he stood up, he turned off the camera. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree that Bob Globebusters and Effie Core are globe people now. I definitely don't agree with that one bit. But in terms of the non-adherence to the scientific method and my motivation for being there, yeah, he's spot on. You know, I did feel a little bit hard done by, I won't lie, as you know, as I explained probably on a few shows beforehand, that it wasn't something I was looking forward to. You know, the double-edged sword that is the highlighting of the hijacking of science is something that I wield on both flat earthers and globeheads. And unfortunately, I don't enjoy doing it when it's people on my own side, but it is for the greater good. Ultimately speaking, calling things experiments when they're not, when they're actually observation and just so story, or observation and explanation, called experiment with explanation, in the case of Sagnac, well, that's not science. And the fact that it has that magic word attached to it, science, or in this case, experiment, people understand implicitly that an experiment is going to go forth and prove things. So when you call things an experiment, you invoke science. That magic word is the deception. So you're taught in science that we have a method of proving things. Then you're told almost immediately afterwards that it doesn't prove things by showing you how it doesn't prove things, but under the banner of science, whilst being told it does also class as science and therefore does prove things. That's the trick. So here's the method of proving things empirically. Vary your independent variable, your presumed cause of the phenomena you have observed, and if it causes the phenomena to occur, then you have a cause and effect relationship established through experimentation that you can repeat. You have caused the effect. Simple as. You've established the cause. Well, that's proof. You've proved your hypothesis to be true, your presumed cause to be correct. So you've proved things. Well, if you then go forward and say, this experiment, immediately that magic works, and you think, experiment, well, we're proving things here then. No. Just calling something an experiment doesn't make it a valid hypothesis test, and that's what science is. If you're to invoke science, and it's not an adherence to the scientific method, then you're a pseudoscientist. That's really sad that we can have people on our side that can easily be picked apart by the opposition as pseudoscientist practitioners. I wouldn't want that, and my motivation and goal is to prevent that and point out that that's where the deception lies in the first instance, being deceived about what is and is not proof. What men assert is definitely not proof, and there's a valid empirical method. Guess what the name of it is? Scientific method. But no, we need to move past that if you were to assert that what you say is correct and true. 5 minutes before the live show, all on my own. Big shout out to all the people who've supported me on Patreon while I've got the ear of the Nathan Oakley audience. This being my second channel. If you're hearing this now, you're listening on my secondary channel. So what you'll see in 5 minutes time is not live, despite the fact of me telling you it's live. But yeah, big shout out to my Patreons. I really, really appreciate it. So I don't know if I've put this in some of the blurb or not. Probably talked about it, but a lot of my equipment's really old. And it does give me some issues. It gave me an issue last night on Globebusters, which was highly embarrassing. My preamp just shut down for no apparent reason. But my equipment was all bought when I was a teenager, believe it or not. So it was bought back in the 20th century. So it was bought in 1999. A lot of the equipment that I use. So if maybe you haven't, but if anybody has perused my channel and seen a video that's got the insides of my lounge, you'll see various rather funky looking speakers and equipment that looks really quite high tech, and by any standards it still is, because most of it hasn't changed. If you bought the equivalent today, it'd probably be virtually identical, especially the amplifiers and speakers. But nevertheless, they're very, very old, which is unfortunate. They're 20 years old now, which is a bit of a problem when you're trying to use it to run a live show. But I've sent one of the amplifiers off to be repaired, and I said to one of the Patreons, I sent him a big thank you. He was quite a big contributor, and I said, look, I've been able to send an amp off and get it fixed. It had already been sent off once. It's broken again, and I can hopefully now get it fixed once and for all. And without the Patreons, I couldn't even afford the postage. That's the reality of the situation. In time I may up the amount I asked for on Patreon, to facilitate a bit of a time-saving device. Sorry, I can just hear my kids' bedroom. With the dead air. This is one of the fortunate things about having the after show and pre-show on the second channel. I'm not so concerned about starting with nothing here or nobody here and disappearing with a bit of dead air. So enjoy yourselves in the chat while there's completely dead air. All is well. Musing and snoring quite happily. Nice to actually start with a guest. No, not going to get a reply out of Anthony. Oh, hello.
Yo.
Hello, you going to join me in the hangout?
I am. I'll be with you in about 2 minutes.
Oh, okay, brilliant. I'm going to start in about 60 seconds, just so you know.
Okay, all right. I'm on my way.
Okay, thanks. Super duper. 3 minutes. So yeah, I don't mind the dead air. It's been very stressful. So because I was doing the stream with the recording that I'm doing now on the second channel, it's ultimately going out as the start of the show on the main channel, where I'll go live in a moment, Nathan Oakley 1980. So if you're unaware and you're listening to this right now, you are on the second channel, and Nathan Oakley 1980 is now the place where the live shows will go out. So there should be, I'll double check all this after, a link in the info box below the video to Nathan Oakley 1980, where you can now watch the live shows. So yeah, go and subscribe if you're only subscribed here. Seems unlikely that there's far less subscribers on this channel, Nathan Oakley channel. It's a few buttons, even though I've got a couple of minutes to go. By the time I've pressed everything, Anthony will arrive, and I'll click start literally as he arrives. It's to go. Just watch that Slick James Johnson video, and will, because we're about to start, stick the link to... Oh, it's gone off my clipboard. Oh, I'm sorry, Slick. In the replay, I will definitely put your link. I'll stick it as a comment, that's what I'll do. Thank you very much for your video. Obviously, there was lots of complimentary stuff to me. Hello. Who we got? Paul.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Very well indeed. Got about a minute and a half before I go live.
You definitely stirred up some trouble yesterday.
Oh, really? Trouble?
I'm making a joke more than anything. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I hope I haven't stirred trouble. That definitely isn't my intention if that's the case. Well, I'll find out more from you shortly. Hi, Anthony. Hello. Testing. No, got nothing from you, Anthony, I'm afraid.
Yo.
Hello.
I am glad. Oh, there he is.
We're not live yet, are we?
No, not yet. Just say a few more words.
Nathan is gay.
A few more, please.
Proper gay.
One more.
Anthony's a cunt.
No need. One more time, Anthony. Nothing.
Oh.
I'm just going to guess that's good enough. If you're too quiet, tough luck. Serves you right for calling me
hang on.
a gay.
Right, that should be better. I've turned myself up. I didn't realise I was too quiet.
You weren't too quiet. Far from it. Now you've made yourself miles too loud. Ugh. I'm going to be late if you mess me around. Just put it back how it was. It was all good.
Wait, but you want me to change it back?
Yes, please.
Right, that's back how it was. Well, just cook, will ya?
Okay, right, we're ready to rock and roll. No swearing, please.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the live Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on social media. Shout out to Colin Turner for hitting the super chat during the intro. Massive thanks to you. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior and Paul. Good to have you both.
Hello, sir.
Woohoo!
Oh. Nathan, let's dispense with housekeeping for one show. Let's have the conversation that is the hot potato. What happened on Globebusters last night then?
No, but you've got a lot of background hiss. What's that all about?
It's not me, it's Paul.
Oh, is it Paul?
Sorry. I'm actually driving, so let me mute, and I'll come back in when I need to talk.
Yeah, it sounds like I don't mind dispensing with housekeeping. If you want to talk about Globebusters, that's fine by me.
Well, I think it's the only thing that people are going to want to talk about today. So what we'll do, we all know what happened. I'll do the fact bit. Joined Globebusters. There was a bit of a back and forth. Rage quit, and then responses. I'll play the journalist. So Nathan, what happened on Globebusters last night?
Well, first of all, I didn't rage quit. I was invited to leave. Hello, Flat and Earth. Good to have you.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. Nice to see you. So no, I didn't rage quit.
See you.
I was getting annoyed, and I was glad of the opportunity. Don't get me wrong. But by the same token, when someone says, look, if you're going to talk over me on this show, then you might as well leave, or words to that effect, at that point, I'm going to say, okay, fine. I'm trying to help here. So if that's the way it is, then fine. I'm obviously wasting my breath.
So it wasn't a rage quit. Okay, so what was the... All right. Why did you take advantage of the opportunity?
Say that again. I know what you've done. The gate you've got too high. The second wheel on your desk is too high, so it's cutting you off.
I've turned it down.
There we go.
Turned it down.
Hello.
So the
Chocolate
question
saying,
is, if it
sorry,
wasn't
Anthony.
a rage quit...
Just one sec. Hey, Chocolate. Hey, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey.
Hey, Chocolate.
That was a good impression as well.
Right, I'll do my best. I didn't think you'd come off mute, but you did.
Good
All
morning,
right, so if it wasn't a rage quit, what was it? Why did you leave? What was the issue? Because everybody wants to know what actually happened. Why did you leave?
Because I'd given a fairly concise and consistent explanation for the issue at hand, and it was promptly ignored. So that's why. Shout out to Brandon for the super chat. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate your support. So if you explain something in great detail, and then someone promptly ignores it and says, no, we're not going to call an experiment an experiment when it says the word experiment on screen. And, you know, after I'd gone, the video that they played, which I know well, goes on to detail how the experiment works. And if it's not an experiment, and my point is that that word has become a magic word. Hey, Spurs, how you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. How are
Good afternoon. Very well, very well. I was just talking about magic words, saying that if you're trained at school to understand that science means proof of something, and you assert scientific terminology such as experiment, that will automatically have the magic effect that is desired when you invoke this language, which is to say that you understand from a child that it means you've proven something. So if you can then twist what is actually proof, the scientific method, empirical, to mean what you say, i.e. an assertion based on a gadget or an observation of a light in the sky or anything else for that matter, then a useful magic word is experiment or science or hypothesis or any of these other words. So if you've just explained that to somebody and they ultimately go, right, let's listen to what the words of this man are about a pseudoscience non-experiment that doesn't adhere to the scientific method. Let's go! And I go, no, but this doesn't prove anything. And then you get told off. That's good enough cause to leave. And I did. There you go. There's your answer, Anthony.
Yeah, it's like the white coat. People seem to think if you wear a jacket or white overall, you know what you're talking about. So yeah, the same thing with the experiment. People have hijacked the meaning of what it means. And I don't know, are you talking about yesterday's show or just in general?
Yeah, we're just chit-chatting, Spurs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're definitely talking about yesterday's show.
You don't want to talk?
No, we are. That is
Oh,
definitely...
you are?
I'm just kidding with you.
Well, okay. You've been through the housekeeping and things like that. I'm not interrupting anything like that.
No, we're not. We've dispensed with housekeeping because specifically people are going to want to know why, quote, according to Anthony, I rage quit. Well, I didn't. That was the first thing I pointed out. And then when I was asked why I've left, it's because everything I said was essentially ignored. You know. But there we go.
Did you leave or did they kick you out?
Oh, I definitely left. I mean, I'll be ruthlessly honest with you. For a few minutes, I'd been hovering over the I'm going to leave button, but did not want to rage quit, as you put it. So when I was given the opportunity to leave, I took it. Well, that's not me rage quitting, and I won't lie, I was looking for that opportunity to leave. So that's as ruthlessly honest as I can be. Now, you can spin that into he rage quit, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out
no,
to
I
Miguel
don't think it was
Super
rage.
Chat.
I think you made your point anyway, and it would have, you know, if it's just seen as like a point, okay, thank you, Nathan, that's your point, then, you know, there's nothing to discuss. But if it's, I don't think, I can't remember the other guy's name, but they didn't want to explore, you know, what
The other guy was Mike.
Mike, yeah. So instead of exploring, because we're in this together, right?
I've got
So-
a troll already. Hold on. Has anybody got the back chat?
I don't have it. Can you get rid of him, Nathan?
Then that's bad news.
Yeah, this might get sniped. I didn't have it open.
All right, I got rid of him. Your reply that you just gave, Nathan, makes it seem like you did rage quit, but it was specifically that Bob was trying to obfuscate the point by playing the Sagniak video, and you were trying to skip over that whole thing because then they would have just gone with the Sagniak effect as if it's some kind of test. And that's the thing. And then
Hold on a second. Hi, Darth Studios. Oh no, it's just a
that was
troll.
the same person.
Sorry, Earth Flattener.
All right. So yeah, so they were trying to obfuscate the point, and by playing this video and maybe trying to prove that it somehow proves the ether, but that's not the point you were trying to make. And then so you were trying to cut off him playing the video, and then he said, well, if you're just going to cut me off, then maybe it is time for you to go, and that's when you left. So he actually told you to go because you were blocking the video, and he took that as a personal offense.
No, how I saw it was wires crossed. So when Nathan was saying to Bob, "You said this," what's his name? Mike. Mike was saying, "No, I didn't say that." And Nathan, I think he was talking to Bob at the time, trying to get Bob to address a point. But then Mike was saying, "Oh, I didn't say that. That wasn't me. I never said this." And I was listening, thinking, "Well, yeah, he didn't say you. He's saying that Bob was saying that this is an experiment, and he just wanted to explore that. So again, that's what I think it was. You, Nathan, wanted to explore what he means by saying it's an experiment, because you've just explained it's not an experiment." And then it just went all over the place when the guy was like, "Well, I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth." He wasn't even talking to him, I thought.
But right after that, though, right after Bob conceded that it wasn't an experiment, then he went off to say that this Michael Bowden says that, the Sagnac was an experiment and that he proved the ether right after that.
Yeah, so I just think
like-
Nathan just brought back up and saying that it's not an experiment, and maybe Bob just a slip of the tongue, because when you're in the mode or whatever. So I think that then when it fell apart was when Mike was like, "You're putting words in my mouth," but he wasn't exactly talking to Mike per se. I don't think. Yeah, I have another reason as why it went the way it did, and I think Nathan had to say this now without sounding like I think you embarrassed the situation there, because you had an understanding of what science is, how it works, how it goes, and you because you were like, "Oh, I'm not trying to treat you like a ball earther, Bob, but this is what the method is. This is the steps that you should follow, or we should follow." And I think it kind of, Bob was like, "Well, I don't know." It felt to me like he was a little bit embarrassed that he didn't know the scientific method completely like that, and was just trying to say, "Look, well, technology is science. All the computers are science."
Yeah.
And we were trying to say not quite. So I get it. I think that's where it kind of fell down when. But it's not your fault.
Point that was missed.
You're doing this every single day. Sorry.
Hey, Kosho, how you doing?
No,
Can you
no.
hear us? Shout out to, is it Jeremiah Harris? I can't quite read it. I'm sorry, the glare of the screen. I'm going to bring it up on my iPad so I can read your names. Hey, Kosho.
Well, the question was, why did Nathan rage quit? And he didn't.
Oh, sorry, bear with me. Hey, Kosho, can you hear us?
Hey, Cosine.
Oh, sure.
Kosho said hi. He was quiet.
He did,
He
say,
did say
hi.
hi.
Okay. Hey, Zinda, can you hear us? And shout out to JS for the super chat. Thank you very much.
I can hear her now. Right.
Good. Sorry,
You can hear me.
Do you want to carry on, my friend?
Yeah. I mean, you do it to everybody. You embarrass the best of them. And the ball earthers, they come on here, they profess to be wise, knowledge. We break down the scientific method. And by the end of it, they understand, yeah, this is actually the right way. So I think, with the Bob show, it kind of felt a little bit like that. Not to me, not to, people who understand this method, but I think he probably thought, well, this is not, the show. So don't But again, what can we do? This is the method. We have to stick to it. We can't deviate, otherwise it's pseudoscience. In my mind, that's what I was thinking. Is like, what is Nathan saying wrong? You have an order.
You're right.
Yeah, I was just trying to think.
Right. And the point, I don't even want to cut you off, but the point that they missed was that Nathan was saying that we're in this situation because we've taken whatever these white coats and these so-called scientists want to pass off to us, which are really observations or tests or whatever, and they pass it off to us as experiments. And we just fall for it. We just take it, oh yeah, this is what it is. We're told it's fact, and we fall for it. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. And we're trying to avoid that on our own. And I mean, look, Bob is the one who's being toted around right now as the guy who proved rotation off of an experiment off of a gyro. Mm-hmm. And Nathan's trying to like show that that's not possible. And it's like they couldn't understand that. And I got love for Globebusters and all that, but I mean, yeah, there were wires crossed. That definitely happened.
The point I'd like to make is that when Bob brought up the voltmeter, Nathan was saying, like, prior to him making the point about the voltmeter, Nathan was trying to say that this is basically technology, and technology is not science. It might be part of the process of applying a method, but it's not actually science to have like technology as your citation. And Bob said, well, what about a voltmeter? A voltmeter is a measuring the current, and that's an example of technology. It's not an example where there is the identification of a cause in a cause and effect relationship. And when Bob brought that up, that's where I realized that Bob didn't get that point, because although it's true to say that you're measuring part of the current of the energy, the flow of electricity, what you're not doing is you're not proving anything about where it's what's causing that. You're just measuring it. So to measure something, be it a tape measure for height or I don't know, a speedometer for speed, in this case a gyroscope for momentum or whatever, that's not proving a cause in a scientific experiment. And that's the bit that Bob didn't get, because he wanted the voltmeter to be like science. And it's part of the discussion, it's part of the technique or whatever, but it's not proving any cause.
I think the part that got to Bob, again, I could be wrong, I'm not attacking anything, I'm just looking at it from the outside. And I think the part that got to him is when you question him, Nathan, on the cause of what is turning. Because you do this a lot. You make people think about what they're, this is what we like to do. We like to make people think about what they're actually saying. And you were like, okay, so the stars are turning or something is turning. What is the cause? How do we test that? And then they have to think, well, how would I test that? Right? So yeah, I think that's where like the confusion, or it just felt like, you were, no, it didn't actually. It didn't feel like you were treating like a board. It's like trying not to, just how to have a conversation and tell like a friend, look, this is.
But Spurs, you're exactly right though, because that's what I heard in the conversation. I heard the arguments that we have against the Cavendish experiment, how what we're seeing, the phenomenon that we're seeing is in the apparatus. That you had to create the apparatus to see the phenomenon that we're. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No. That's what we're trying to show people. But I think people don't get that. Literally, it's like a light's being turned on as we are speaking, like as we are explaining this, walking people through it. And then they because you heard Nathan say as well, he had a PhD or someone on there, John, where at the end he conceded, okay, this is the method, the correct way to know something. So again, I think people have to walk through this. And I don't think on Globebusters there was enough time to do like, there was not enough time for Nathan to explain again. Because on here, we've got a lot of time. He'll go over it again and again, and he'll say, right, I'll repeat it again. And people do actually need that. People need to hear it again and again, so it sinks in. And, I think in that case, there wasn't enough time, obviously, to explain the full method. But I don't think he did anything wrong. I think Bob will come around and understand that we have to follow a particular order. Otherwise, it's pseudoscience.
Well, that's not strictly accurate. So nobody has to follow any method. However, if you're to assert that you are performing, for example, an experiment, then that's scientific terminology. So as soon as you use that word, well, what is an experiment? Well, it's a hypothesis test. So I'm not asserting that anybody has to do anything or follow any method. The problem
To
with
know,
all us...
hold on, Nathan, hold on. To know something about the natural and physical world, we don't have to follow a method.
No, the scientific method is an empirical way of establishing the cause of an effect. That's what it does.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean you have to apply it, and in many instances it is not applicable. If you have a what is question, you're not trying to detail cause and effect. So that sits outside of science. Well, that's a huge amount of questions that can, remain unanswered because you can't put them through the method? Well, no. There are other means of establishing what you want to assert with logic and reason. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your logic and reason can be undone very easily with something else. So what's the solution to that problem? Well, if you can assert that your logical reason and deduction based on discounting of probable outcomes is actually empirical, well, then that would be very useful. Well, how do you do that? Well, I'll tell you. You say the word science when you use logic and reason and deduction and reduction of the correlations that you have and their likelihood of being the cause of an effect. Well, that isn't science. But if you say it's science, then you are a pseudoscientist. If you say it's an experiment and you've not adhered to that method, i.e. a hypothesis test, which is what an experiment is, then you're a pseudoscientist. Now, if you try and rephrase an experiment, and it's on screen, deemed an experiment, Sagnac experiment, Cavendish experiment, and you just say, well, no, this is just an observation, and then you say, but we've manipulated variables, well, what is the point of manipulating variables for making an observation? You can just look at things. Just look at them. Why do I need to manipulate variables? That would be something that you do in the scientific method. So if you're going to say that, well, it's just an observation, well, what the fuck are you doing varying things then?
So
you don't need to.
The phenomena question is a what question? I mean, what kind of question?
A cause and effect relationship.
No, you're saying it's a why or a how or what.
Yeah.
Is it a what? You know, you were saying science answers this. So phenomena is what is
cause
is what?
And effect. The effect being the phenomena you observe. So when Bob said, why? I can observe the star rotations. Okay, here you go. Yeah. Wicked. Phenomena. Okay, well, so we've potentially got a scientific inquiry. We can establish with that method the cause of that effect. And how do you do that? Well, you presume what is causing that effect, and then you vary that presumed cause and see if it causes the effect. That's all science does.
Yeah. Very simple, really, actually, yeah. So I think people actually, they don't see how simple it is. They think science is more complex than it has to be, right? So obviously people with the white coats and their credentials, they can obviously tell these people anything simply because of this. So for me, it's a very simple process. If you want to know something, you would follow a procedure in the natural world, science, phenomena that you don't understand.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Like you say,
hold on. UK Truth, how you doing? Hear us?
Camera's on.
Can you say hello, my friend? Give him a moment. Spurs. Hello, UK Truth. We need to say. Okay.
Oh, he's gone.
No worries. Carry on, Chemo. My bad.
Yeah. No. Well, you see. Okay. So yeah. Yes. You are right, but people want to know kind of why you are right. They have method. So this method that you're talking about, different ways. I think that's what people are trying to find out when they know something, and which method to use. How do we know things? Yeah. So I think that's what the confusion lies in. How do we know how computers work? Is it science? How do we know how technology works? Is it because of science? And I think that's where the problem probably was, is how do we know what we know? Because he was saying you could just throw out everything if you want to throw out science or something like this.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to illustrate. What I'm trying to illustrate is that when you invoke science with words like experiment, then you are expected to have adhered to science. That's it. And if you haven't, but you go like Bob did, well, I don't know about the cause and effect IVDV bit, but this experiment, well, so you use the magic word that says proof, and then tell me that you don't understand how the IVDV bit works. Well, the experiment is the last bit, the end. We don't start with an experiment and then say, what's causing this? No, that's not how it works. You start by observing something happening, a phenomena, and go, what's causing this to happen? Let's see if we can establish what's the cause. And then you vary and manipulate a presumed cause with a null hypothesis attached, a zero difference result. In other words, when you perform the experiment, you have two sides, one that says you've got it right. You presumed the correct cause, and it did cause the effect. Proof, positive, empirical.
I think people would like to see an example.
Or, my bad, I'm just explaining something complicated, Spurs, so yeah, just jump in, mate. Or a null hypothesis, something that they claim is proof also. Null being zero difference. So when they have these experiments that come out with null results, zero difference, they claim science. No. If you get a null result, you incorrectly identified the cause of the effect. So not a validated hypothesis, but a zero difference, null result. Yet they get posted up as the child of science also, don't they? Here we are with our null result that proves this, my assertion. No. All you're trying to do is prove the cause of an effect. That's it.
One of the things, understand that concept. I was going to say, if because I was asked earlier on, do we have anything where we've actually followed this method and applied? Have we? Anthony, is there anything you can think of where this method is applied? Or Arwin? You know,
well, I'd like to address the situation because Nathan makes a very good point. But isn't there any other way the word experiment can be interpreted outside of the scientific
not about
method?
interpreting the word. What do you mean interpreting? It's not open to interpretation.
Please, if I can please continue my
question.
No,
because you're saying, is there any other way we can interpret?
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no other way.
If I look the word up experiment through etymology, what I get to see is it basically derived from Old French, meaning try.
That's fascinating. It's a hypothesis test. That's what we are doing when we perform an experiment. And a hypothesis test is a scientific prediction. If you want to, you can interpret that word to mean what you say. That's what's happened.
But only if you're gonna do it in the context of scientific
exactly, Arwin.
Right, so why couldn't you use the word experiment just in general? Just to test
I'm not.
To try it out?
I'm not. Am I?
Well, no.
Well, why are you
Bob
asking me? Ask Bob. Why are you using these words, Bob, when you haven't got the vaguest notion what they mean, Bob? Why is it that when you tell me you've done an experiment, a hypothesis test, and that science has proved the ether, why is it you can't tell me what an IVDV relationship is? Why is it that you're trying to vary the bloody hypothesis live on air if you've already done an experiment? Why, Bob? Why? Why am I getting asked about what is needed to be done to produce an experiment when you've already claimed you've got one? Why is this not a hypothesis test if you're to claim that science proves the bloody ether? Well, let's see you prove it then. What's the hypothesis? Oh, I don't know about that bit. I've just got the magic word of experiment. Let's have a look at this guy and what he says about the Sagnac experiment. But it's not really an experiment. Even though it's in bold capitalised type on screen, I'm now going to call it an observation. So we have very literally observation with explanation being used as proof. It's an absolute outrage. If anybody cuts me off again, I'm going to start kicking people because I am furious about this, if I'm honest. I've listened to your opinions on it, and the fact remains, we have in our midst, in Flat Earth, practitioners of pseudoscience. They haven't got the vaguest clue how to formulate a hypothesis and ask me on the fly if it's acceptable to substitute the independent variable for the dependent variable. Well, if I'm not going to call the gyro the dependent variable, would it be okay, Nathan, if we call the star rotation the dependent variable? Why am I, the person who's pointing out that this is pseudoscience, the one being asked how to formulate the hypothesis when the experiment is a hypothesis test? So these pretender clown muppets are, in my view, no better than the pseudoscience pretender wiki parroting clowns who come on here and tell us Cavendish is science. Well, what's the IV and DV relationship? Oh, well, I don't know. I'll have a look. Oh, well, we've got more than one independent variable. We've got lots of them. Yeah, that's the kind of crap we get. From Bob, well, is it the star rotation or is it the gyro? Maybe you can tell me how we can make this experiment scientific. What the hell? You don't start with an experiment and then try and make it scientific. You start with the observation of a bloody phenomena, and then you try and explain what's causing it. If you're going to use scientific vernacular, not decide that you've got an experiment on your hands and then work backwards. That's what Globebusters are doing. And then going, oh, well, no, we'll just call it an observation then. So what? Observation and declaration? How fucking dare you, Bob, you pretender clown muppet. You think you can observe something and then declare that we've got ether? How dare you, pretender clown, pseudoscience, pretender clown, wiki parroting muppet. You've got no science and no clue how to even formulate a hypothesis, yet you're telling your audience that you've done experiments. Well, good for you. Net result of your fuckwittery is that you've got the entire ball community claiming you've proven the bloody earth spins with science. And you want to defend to me that you can continue to assert this garbage. So that's the bit that I would have done if I hadn't dropped on Globebusters in front of about 1,000 live viewers instead of my pittance of 322 people watching. Wow. Jesus.
We
Choke
love you,
on my
Nathan.
own words.
We love you.
Yeah, it's
We
not
love you, buddy.
Not a big surprise there.
That was the greatest reaction. Oh shit!
That's the reason why I keep
That was
going
awesome.
Flat Earth. This is so good.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of people watching. But yeah, I didn't
Drama.
want to spout
Drama.
my vitriol at Bob like I've just done. He's not here to react. And had I done it live on air, full-blown row. Now I can take a few seconds, calm myself down, get my shit back together, stop swearing, and say, I just don't want us flat earthers to also be pseudoscience pretender clown muppets. And that's what I'm dealing with on Globebusters at the moment. And it's an outrage. Don't just watch something and declare what's happening. That's total garbage. Shout out to Eagle Plane and
I saw a huge opportunity for the show.
Shout out to Eagle Plane and Super Chat and James Richard for the Super Chat. Thank you very much indeed. You can't join because I know there's a gap on the panel if you want to join, James.
Erwin, can I jump in real quick? I've been listening. I wanted to say something. I actually saw a huge opportunity here because I saw the potential for the conversation to go in a certain direction. And even Nathan was starting to pick up, started to go after it, but it did get derailed. Like, the gyroscope, the Sagnac effect is a phenomenon. Now, it is created by an apparatus, but then you could still apply the scientific method to that, whatever you're seeing. And then even the terminology I started to change, I noticed, and showing that the gyroscope is actually a measuring device instead of it being some kind of thing. And I could see where if it would have gone there, because Nathan was trying to get them to recognize how they're defining words and how they're using words, and it wouldn't go there. But I could also see the potential if everybody would have started getting on the same page, it could have been a very productive conversation. And that's the thing I was seeing. I was sad when Nathan left. I was like, great, if it could have gone a little bit better, if the temperatures could have gone down just a little bit, and we just started to address the terminology a little bit better, it would have been a great conversation, I think, and it would have ended at a good end. But it never went there, and that's the sad thing that saddens me about it. And anyway, that's the only thing I was going to say. But I think it could have gone somewhere really well if started focusing on the terminology, and then of course Bob obfuscated the, you're nitpicking or you're, semantic over words. I'm going like, this is the point. This is what Nathan's saying. This is the point. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
How many definitions are there for experiment out there? I mean, of science in the scientific content, obviously, I can agree with the hypothesis test. But when people are talking about experiments, there is like a test done in order to learn something or discover if something works or is true. Sometimes it doesn't have to do anything with science, right? So that's why they got pissed off, I think, because they wanted to present their case. They wanted to present the stuff with the gyroscope, but Nathan wanted to talk about the specific terms of science. So yeah, I kind of can understand them in a certain way.
Shout out to the Mind of God, Silver, Umbrella, and Colin for the super chats. Really appreciate your support. Yeah, that's true, Zinda. However, scientific method is useful because it's empirical. So again, if you're to assert that you are performing science and use terminology in that context, like experiment, then I would expect an adherence to the method because that's what's being detailed. Now you can say, well, let's just slightly recontextualize it then. Well, go ahead. I'll still point out that you're using scientific terminology in a scientific context whilst declaring that science proves the ether and that you've got an experiment that does so. That's pretty clear in its context. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's kind of clear.
Right.
And,
so what I will do then,
see...
I just needed the agreement because what I do then is take a giant steaming dump on the pseudo-science pretender muppet that's parroting that shit, which is precisely what it is. Unfortunately, that offended Bob. He didn't like it. His ego very much got in the way, and he would rather be held up as a poster child of proving Earth turn than admit that he's wrong.
But how do you make a cause and effect relationship between the sky turning and what is causing it?
I couldn't give a crap. I don't care. I'm not making those assertions now, am I? Bob is making those assertions. That's my point.
So I think you have to answer that question properly, Zinda. You have to go through the process and apply it like a baller. So you observe the phenomena. We see stars moving. Okay, so what's the cause of the stars moving? I think that it might be Earth turn. Okay, so what are you going to do to manipulate Earth turn to prove that it is the effect that we see? I'm going to manipulate Earth turn. So then, how are you going to do that unless you're God?
Yeah,
do we have a problem?
I'm trying to look at it more from a flat Earth's perspective. How
right,
do
from
you...
a flat Earth's perspective,
it's not moving.
You won't. No,
that's our
no.
perspective.
Yeah,
but
we
the
look
sky,
up and see the stars moving and say stars
turning.
moving.
The sky is turning, isn't it?
Zinda, we look up and see the stars moving and we say stars moving. End of sentence.
Right.
Well, if you want to find out why they move, then the scientific
then you have to make the stars
find the cause first. Good luck
then
with
you have
that.
to prove that the cause is star movement, and you have to manipulate that movement of stars by being even better than God.
Right.
Yeah. So the scientific method can't be applied in order
Correct.
to find out.
Well done. That's the point, Zinda. Well done.
Cannot be applied to things that we cannot
So when the whole body of science proves something, Zinda,
No,
in this issue, doesn't prove anything, does it? Because we know that we can't manipulate Earth turn.
So what does that mean, Zinda? That means
the whole body of science doesn't prove this point. Which
yeah, but what it
everyone
means,
thinks
Anthony,
that it
as well, Zinda. So if it's not science, then what is it? What are you using to determine this information?
Let me just finish my point before. So they on Globebusters had an impossible challenge they had to complete in order to go on with their point, right?
No,
so
they don't have an
what could
impossible
they?
challenge.
What could
Let
they have
Zinda get to
done?
the end. Just let Zinda get to the end.
It was an impossible challenge to complete those steps. So in order to avoid it, either they could just have avoided talking about experiment and science completely, right? So they wouldn't get in conflict with Nathan, or they just could have gone on and how they did and ignored what Nathan said. So they decided to go on, and at the end, Nathan didn't like it very much. So,
But was Nathan wrong though, Zinda? That's the question.
in those strict terminologies, it was right. About the definition.
Well, isn't that what we're trying to stick to?
So, all we're interested in, this is not a show, it's not a pantomime. I know you like the entertainment side of it, but we're trying
I really like it,
yeah, we're trying to find the truth. That's it. So Nathan's questions are very straightforward, and as you just said, strictly speaking, he is correct. No?
Yeah, but they couldn't give an answer that would satisfy the scientific method because it was impossible in
Correct.
those
It
terms,
wasn't an
right?
experiment, right?
Right.
Zinder?
That's the point. So when they invoke scientific terminology, it becomes a magic word that means I've proven something here. Listen, I've got this word that says proof. Which word would that be? Oh, experiment. Why? Well, because experiments are hypothesis tests, especially when you're talking about sciencing the shit out of stuff and science proving ether turn, or in the case of globe earthers, oh, well, this is science proving earth turn. Well, no.
We have a body of science, Zinda. What is this body of science? Science. This is a very important word. You can't just throw around the word science and think we're not going to question you on it. You see?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the body of science is. I mean, I hear it getting thrown around a lot of times, but I personally don't really care about the scientific method.
Yeah,
because,
it's thrown around by ballers.
The scientific method is touted as being the proof that we live on a spinning ball, but when we ask for the proof, it doesn't appear to be that strong.
Well,
I wonder
just a couple of things, Zinda.
Do they really, or do they just use science as a beautiful word?
Zinda, think about it. Neil deGrasse says we are against science. Why do you think we're so angry? We are against science. We're the religious ones when we're trying to find the truth. When you have people like that, Zinda, saying that we're against science, we're an attack on science, we're an attack on education, you're going to see a backlash similar to this.
Well, what Neil deGrasse Tyson says isn't of much importance. It's just a guy, and
but when it suits, it's important, though, doesn't it?
What
I
he
never
says...
cite him.
Hold on. Science is right whether you like it or not, Zinda. Science is right whether you like it or not. That's what Neil deGrasse Tyson's got to say. And what type of scientist is he? Well, he's an astrophysicist. So, can an astrophysicist adhere to the scientific method when using this magical word that says proof? Well, no. He can only observe phenomena and then come up with a just-so story. So, he is a practitioner of pseudoscience, but he invokes this magic word the same as Globebusters do. He's performed experiments. They all perform experiments, don't they? They're scientists. Well, what is an experiment? Well, it's a hypothesis test to establish the IV-DV relationship. That's what it is. That's the method of science. So if you're a scientist, and science is right whether you like it or not, and you've performed an experiment, and that experiment you've been taught at school is proof, because what's an experiment? The expression of a hypothesis, that's what. But no, they've just lied. That's where the trick, the switcheroo comes in. They're not performing a hypothesis test where they say experiment. They've deviated away from that empirical method. Well, why would you want to deviate away from an empirical method but still use the terminology? Because then suddenly what I say about what I see is proof. Well, bollocks. The empirical method is proof. If you want to prove it, put it through the empirical method. Oh, well, we've evolved beyond this empirical method. Now it's just what I say about what I see. Sod that. No. If you want to invoke science and make people at a deep-seated level think you mean you've proved something, well, then I'm going to hold you to task on it and say, well, let's see your IV-DV hypothesis prediction, your scientific prediction, and let's see the systematic experimentation that validated that cause of that effect. And if you can't, I'll say this is pseudoscience. You've said it was an experiment. It's not. And if you don't like that, you'll get the reaction I get from most people when I do this to them. Globe side and flat earth side, I've had it from both of them. They don't like it because they want what they say to mean proof. They want to use this magic word when they use a gadget and say, we don't actually know what the effect is, but there's definitely something to be inquired here about this man-made gadget. It's like, well, shouldn't what you're observing be the first step? You don't even know what you're observing. You've just got some interesting anomaly on a gadget. Well, who gives a flying fuck? I don't care. I'm interested in the natural world. Isn't that what this bloody discussion's about? The world we live in? Yeah? Well, that's science. Exclusively interested in the physical and natural world. That's what I'm interested in here. Flat Earth debate. I'm interested in the physical and natural world. So science is definitely on my side here. So when pretender clowns start parroting that they've got experiments and they haven't, I'm going to be the first on that. I'm going to be all over it like flies on shit, saying, no, this isn't an experiment. And if you assert it, you'll go down a path that leads you to the end result being somebody on the ball side saying, well done for proving my Earth spins with science. So suddenly that magic word's being used against us. Why? Why am I having people in the comments tell me that science proves Earth turn? Oh, right, because we've got pretender clowns in our midst, haven't we? We've got fraudsters that claim science when they haven't really got science. That's why my comment's full of people thinking that they've got scientific proof of Earth spin. Why have I got these muppets telling me that science has proven Earth spin? Because Bob doesn't understand what science is. That's why. And would you rather listen to me point that out or go, no, actually, this is valid. I'll slightly jig the terminology around and still assert that what I say is proof of something. No, empirical proof comes from the method of science, what you're trying to assert, and don't have.
Zinda, you still here?
Yep, I'm here.
So you said, okay, this experiment is not science. So, two questions. What is it if it's not science? And if we can't use this method, what do we use? Where does that leave us? What do we do? How do we find out things?
By, I don't know, by doing it like everybody did before, like finding out things doesn't have to imply the scientific method, right?
I know.
So,
I'm asking you how. No, first of all, if Bob, you said Bob didn't do science, that's not science. I'm asking you, what is it? How can we describe what Bob did? And then I want you to tell me, if you can, well, how do we find out things? Where does that leave us if it's not science?
well, he measured something, and then if you can't apply the scientific method to it, that restricts thing that Nathan has, I think, from Quantum Eraser, then you are going to have to find out some in a different way, right?
How?
So,
Where does that leave us?
Deduction-based reasoning. It's the
well,
only thing you got.
then you have to build up on your previous knowledge about stuff, and you have to exclude the impossible things, and then you draw a conclusion from it. And most people drew the conclusion that it was Earth turn, and then Globebuster drew the conclusion that it was the ether. At the end, it's your opinion, and you can, I don't know, you can come to your own conclusion. I don't care.
I see. So the method that you want to put it through leads us to the point where we can decide whatever the hell we like is the cause of it at the end of it. If you want it to be Earth turn on one day, you can call it that. If you want it to be the ether rotation on a different day, you can call it that. You don't really come to any empirical result at the end of this method then, Zinda?
No, you won't.
Oh, well, that's fucking useless then, isn't it, you stupid twat? Why the hell would we do that then? That's what Bob's doing, and at the end we've got nothing but shite to show for it, and his head being held up as some sort of arbiter of scientific proof, even though, as you've just rightly pointed out, it proves precisely nothing. You can just assert whatever you like at the end of that method. Oh, well, wouldn't it be useful to have a method that proves things empirically then, Zinda? Oh, there is one! That's useful. What's that method called again? Oh, the scientific method. So let's ignore that method and just discount things until we come to a conclusion we can assert. And if someone else has got a different conclusion, we'll just say they're wrong and we're right and have a little argument about it. Forget about the empirical method. Nah, that's dusty old rubbish. Nah, we'll just use the magic of the words that it implies when we talk about that method, when we just assert that what we say, given the deductions that we've made, because we're smart, aren't we? And we can deduce all of it. So therefore my end conclusion is right. What's that? Your conclusion is that it's not star rotation, it's Earth turn. Well, you're wrong. Well, no, what do you mean I'm not? Well, you are wrong. Well, that's a useful method. Or garbage that proves nothing, unlike the scientific method.
Did you even hear the question that was asked? He
You
asked
said-
if you can't
yeah.
use the scientific method.
Yeah, if you can't use the scientific method, you'll use the method of discounting things one at a time and then come to a conclusion at the end of it, like they have done. I listened to every word you said, and then pointed out that method's shit.
No, the method is fucking useful because you can program stuff, you can increase technology, you can research in medicine. And
listen,
at the end,
listen.
if you get I'm speaking, I'm
listen.
talking, Anthony, I'm talking. And at the
I
end,
know, but you're talking shite. Just
no,
listen.
I'm not.
Listen.
At the end, if you get as a result a product that works and is better than those before, this method is completely all right.
Right, Zinda,
But
listen, please.
It
Listen,
isn't the scientific
No, let him
method. All
finish.
right.
He's making a good point.
It isn't.
Right, Zinda,
it
listen,
may
please.
not be the scientific
interrupting
method.
him.
Trial and
But
error
if it
technology.
works better
What
than
Zinda's
before-
detailing is trial and error for technology. That's what you're detailing.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
great method for improving our society to improve technology.
What trial and error? So at the end of the process, it might fail completely. But that's okay, because we can try again. Oh, wouldn't it be useful to have an empirical method? No, my bad. Let's just go to trial and error.
You know, the cool thing about the scientific method is it's the bottom line and it works. But how much can any of us actually prove with it? Concerning the interests that we have about the world, okay? Look, the whole angle that Nathan is giving it with the scientific method, it works because the ballers falsely claim they have their stuff backed by science. And that's why he should be doing what he does, and he does it so gloriously. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't simultaneously just try to figure out how this freaking world works, okay? And you can't always use the scientific method because we're dealing with elements that cannot be varied by us. But should we then just completely abandon it?
Yes.
No. Maybe
Yes,
Bob
Arwen.
should definitely be more careful in his wording, okay? It's because it's becoming an issue.
Arwen, you should
But-
abandon it. Otherwise, you will have assumption upon assumption. You have to stop there. This is the problem with man. Man has to know. They have this urge to find out. Some people, if they don't know, they don't know. They accept it. You're saying, oh, should we abandon it because we can't use... Well, yeah. What else are you supposed to do? Guess your way through the answer? So this vacuum next to gas pressure, are you going to guess that or use science? Or just say, I don't know?
You're going to work your way through. And again, the scientific
How?
method is the bottom line.
How?
But
How
until
can
you get there, if ever, it's still good to try and figure
How
out
can
what
you
the
work
freaking
the
hell is
way-
going on. Or you're
Arwen,
never going to find out anything.
Yeah, but Arwen, figuring out where we are is different than trying to disprove the lie that we've been told. All our
Right,
life.
but it's two separate things. We can't
Exactly,
just
it's two-
only
two
focus
separate
on
things.
trying to dispel the scientism bullshit.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
two
what do
just
we
separate
science.
do on this
Sorry,
show?
We also
gotta
want to
interject.
find out
do
what
here?
it is.
Sorry, guys, just want to add this one point. It's not two separate things. That's the problem. So the way we've been deceived is through the hijacking of the scientific terminology to mean proof when I say something. Now, it's not two separate things when we do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but it's only when we claim science, the official science, when we go wrong in the baller way. That's the problem. It's a cultural problem.
I
It doesn't
agree.
mean that,
That was
we shouldn't be able to
exactly-
try to reverse engineer what is going on somehow.
That was exactly my point. That was the reason I went on Globebusters, Arwen. That's exactly what I was trying to communicate to them and the audience. Precisely that.
Right. So I agree with you, but still, you know, I think Bob is doing really interesting reasoning work. He's trying to deduce what's going on. And I do respect him for that. What I don't respect him for is his sloppy use of words. And you hammered him for that.
Which is
yesterday.
what
I
has
totally
gotten
agree with
him
that.
into the problem right now of
Exactly.
people claiming that he has proven rotation of the Earth due to a scientific experiment. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's a joke. It's It's a
It
reverse
is a
world
joke.
joke
Yes.
on us.
To us, it's a joke.
And it's a
but
joke on them.
To the people who were taking it serious, it's not a joke.
Right, exactly.
That's
That's
Precisely.
why Nathan is
people who
taking it
read the
seriously.
title and don't actually look into it. They will be fooled. But anyone that looks slightly farther will figure out that it's just a joke by itself.
Well, that's why Nathan has to take it seriously, man.
Shout out to James
I mean,
Richard for the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Thank you very much indeed. Bob is using the same tactics the deception was created by. That's all Nathan is trying to tell him. Precisely. If we fall victim of the same thing, we're no better than they, and they have deceived us into look at what's in the sky, come up with an explanation, call it science, and everyone understands that it's been proven. That's what they do. So if we do the same thing and start calling experiments proof of something when they haven't adhered to that method, they're just pseudoscience. And we are trying to be better than the deceivers that have deceived us. Not use their tactics. And I see this as exactly that. Not because Bob's a bastard, not because he's a bad guy, but because every last one of us, including myself, has been indoctrinated in the same way. Show them a method that proves things, then in the same classroom, with the same heading, science, over the door, tell them about the molten iron core. Tell them about things that aren't science or proven in any way. And then suddenly you've got a magic word from then on in. Just say science when you mean you've done a case study. Just say science when you've actually performed a measurement. Just say science when you've mixed two things together. And people think you've proven something. Why? You've been told it proves things. What proves things? Science proves things. So if I say science, I've proven things. Oh, there's the switcheroo. That's the magic trick. And that's what Bob and the Globebusters team are doing when they cite experiments. They're not experiments.
Using the word science in that way is a false invocation. If he'd only had
why-
left the word science out, then he could even call it an
Yeah, but this is
experiment,
why,
just not a
Arlen,
scientific experiment.
we need
Hold
Linda.
on, Spurs. Kosho, did you want to pipe up?
Yeah, well, I had a question just because I was listening for a little bit and I was thinking about it, and so please don't take this as an assertion because I'm really curious and I want to ask if he did discover something like he got some kind of movement or where he like perceives its rotation, and obviously it wouldn't be right for him to make a claim on what it is. You know, I think someone said stars spinning or something like that. Wouldn't it be reasonable that the next step would be to take this as an observation? You call this an observation, and then to come up with a follow-up experiment to try and see what that was that he actually measured. You know, he make predictions and try to isolate it so that he didn't, you know, just draw a false conclusion. But at the same time, instead of just dropping this where it's at or leaving it as a, you know, null conclusion, he could use it to, you know, further an actual experiment, perhaps.
Well, okay. So you're saying he could take what he has discovered, in inverted commas, and go forward. Essentially, that's your point, right?
Well, yeah, but not necessarily in the, like really just out of curiosity to figure out what it is that he measured. You know what I mean? Just to have that be his question.
Well, you're trying to establish things in the physical and natural world. The phenomena that you observe in the physical and natural world. Does this fall into that category? Are we observing a phenomena in the physical and natural world? Has he discovered a phenomena in the physical and natural world? Or has he created a phenomena in a man-made device?
That would be, yeah. Well, that would be dependent on if the device was malfunctioning or if it was working properly. If it was working properly, then it was detecting something, it was measuring something. And so you have to get to the bottom of what that is.
I think a phenomenon, I mean, and try to or take the scientific method to try to figure out the cause of it. I think in a way that's kind of how our technology is developed in some ways, because we see, well, if we put these two things together, this thing occurs, and we can, if we apply this principle and see if we can work those together. I think there's a combination of trying to, you know, we discover something, we see something, and we say, oh, well, if we interact these things together, our technology. If you heard me.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit, but I think we're good.
Yeah, I know, because this is a heated kind of because of the movie. A lot of people, like even people who I talk to, who know I talk to flat earthers and I'm in this community, and they're not in it at all. and they brought up to me the same issue. So it's obviously bigger than even the people who are normally a part of this. But I don't think it has to be a necessarily a bad thing. You just use it to, like you guys said, like you're here to discover the truth. Let's figure out whatever that is that he detected. It could be something that nobody expected. It could be something that we already predicted. So it's
Kosha, what do you think what Bob did was science?
I was asking around last night. I don't know if you heard me. I actually don't know many details behind it. Like, I don't think he's released anything, and so I wouldn't.
I'm saying, do you think this gyro is science?
Like I said, I wouldn't be able to make that claim without knowing what he's how he's presenting it or what he did to come up with.
No, in general, the ring laser gyro.
What he's doing.
What is a ring laser gyro? What does it do?
Yeah, I know what he's using, but I don't see how he's presenting it. I don't see what he's put forth. And I was asking people who actually did it, and they said it was a different person as well. So I don't even know if he had much.
All I'm trying to find out, if it's not science, as Zinda said, what is it? What has he done? What do you call it?
As little as him playing with a toy, or it could actually be an experiment. It just depends on what he's done and
how he's said the word experiment, and I think this was the problem there.
No, it's only when put into the context of science that using the word experiment becomes a problem, because experiment is just a try. You try something out. If you're going to put it in the context of science, then suddenly, the scientific method has to be applied.
Let me clear that up. So we're not talking about teenagers experimenting with drugs, are we? We're talking about people who are trying to claim they're proving what the world is. So this is definitely about the physical and natural world. These things that are being presented are claimed to be proof about where we live, what's in the sky, what the ground's doing. We're definitely talking about science here. The context is science. If we're talking about the physical and natural world, we're not talking about a kid experimenting with his motorcycle on jumps, are we? So the context is the world we live in, isn't it?
So again, Kosha, if Bob is not doing science, what is it?
Well, Nathan's just said
he's just experimenting with trying to figure it out from a more distant approach.
So
it's like Legos trying to figure out logical deduction.
Figure out what? Hold on. Figure out what?
Am I fucking heard in this room or not?
To
Can I be
try and
unmuted,
figure out some system for what's going on, or like find a way through to a potential eventual true scientific method approach that is even possible.
My context to my question, we will get to you, Hellboy, and we can hear you. So my question was contextualized about what's actually being observed.
Of the
what? Sorry.
It's a gyroscope, right?
You tell me. What the hell are we actually looking at?
Well, that's what he's trying to figure out.
Oh, so we're already at the experiment stage. The experiment being the end of the scientific method, when you validate your presumed cause and effect. But we're actually trying to figure out what the hell we're looking at when we do the experiment. So we haven't got the vaguest clue what we're doing. We're basically just pissing around with toys.
Nathan. So you don't have a clue at what you're looking at, right? That's what you're trying to tell me.
I'm asking the panel what's being looked at.
You're asking the panel, right?
What's being looked at?
Especially you're asking me, right?
Well, no,
I'm part of the panel,
specifically
right?
asking you. No, I was asking the panel.
So you're asking me.
Observed.
You're asking me what you're looking at.
Not
right?
What I looked at. I haven't looked at anything.
Okay. So what was your question again?
Try and listen before coming out with a load of verbal diarrhea. What is being observed? The reason for the question is that's step one in the method if you want to prove something empirically.
Okay, step one in the method.
I haven't finished. Shut up.
Observation.
Why are you still talking when I haven't finished my sentence?
Okay, continue, please.
You don't need to give me permission to continue, Hellboy. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I will continue.
Go ahead, please.
No, as I just said, you don't need to give me permission. This is my show.
Please go ahead, man.
No,
Shit.
No, you don't have to beg for me to carry on either. You know, I'll just keep pointing out that I'll do what I like, and you're talking over me before I get to my point. So,
all right, just go ahead, dude.
Step one is observe a phenomena. So you're trying to answer what's causing that phenomena. The first step is to actually observe something bloody happening. Not first step, have an experiment and try and figure out what's going on in the experiment.
All
So that's
right.
nonsense.
So when you say experiment, what do you mean by experiment?
A hypothesis test in the context of science.
Okay. Where did you get that definition from?
Where did I get the definition of what?
Of science, of experimentation from.
That's a good question.
I want to
Don't know the
understand
answer.
if
I
when
don't know the
you say
answer.
you're doing this as an experimental point of view, if you're actually doing a real scientific experiment or if you're not.
Nathan, do me a favor, please. Just present my screen.
Sure.
So to answer your question, sir, you asked where did you get the definition from? There are many places to get the definition from, but a good place to start for me is pseudoscience, which defines the term of a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method.
And where did you get that definition from?
I just typed in pseudoscience.
Yeah, but
okay. So
honest,
then obviously that's not even worth talking about because it's pseudoscience.
Yeah, it is. Because it's contrasting with
why are we talking about
pseudoscience?
pseudoscience? We are scientific people in this room right now discussing a very important matter, which is flat Earth.
Right. No, actually, we're talking about the scientific method and how it's been hijacked by science by being presented as science when it's actually pseudoscience.
I think he's asking plainly what is science.
What
the opposite of pseudoscience.
The definition of science, please?
It's the opposite of pseudoscience. Would you like me to get the
definition? Science is a method.
Okay, I don't want to hear, like, honestly, bro, seriously, don't tell me the definition of something, the opposite of something, for what it actually is. Tell me the definition of what it is.
Science is a
okay,
method.
so a method of procedure that has characterized natural science, not man-made science, natural science since the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, the formulation, testing, the formulation.
Right, if you interrupt me again, Hellboy, I'm going to kick you the fuck out, right? You are so rude. You haven't got the vaguest idea what these things are. Now you're talking over me, asshole, so that's your last chance. Piss off. You're just a wanker, so sod off. Anthony will now explain the answer to your question that you couldn't shut the fuck up for 2 or 3 minutes to actually listen.
So I gave the definition of pseudoscience and it contrasted with the scientific method, and the scientific method, by simple definition, is a method of procedure that has characterized natural science since the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, and the formulation, testing, and modification of hypothesis. That's basically what is science. It's not just making an observation or describing what you see or projecting your falsities onto other people because we're so-called science deniers. We're actually trying to put the science back into science, and it's obvious that nobody wants it in there because in science we can't manipulate the cause for what is the sunset. We can't manipulate the Earth rotation, but they need it to be scientific, and that was my point against Zinda before when he started bullshitting his way through his shite. You can't prove in science the things that you guys claim is proven to be science. In other words, Earth spin, gravity. Can't prove all these things because we can't manipulate the cause. That's basically what we're trying to say.
What was I bullshitting? Where was I wrong?
I was trying to interrupt you and you spoke over and over and over, and I was interrupting you because you were talking shite. Your point against Nathan was, how was Bob going to be able to prove the point that he was trying to make? And our point is, he can't. That's the whole point. It's
no,
not
that was
science.
my point. That was my point.
Yeah, but you stated, how can Bob prove? And the answer is, he can't, because he can't manipulate the stars. So to prove what the stars are doing, you've got to prove what you believe is your presumed cause, i.e. either Earth spin or star rotation, and you can do neither. So in science, you can't prove whichever one you believe you think you're looking at. So in science, you can't do it. You have to do it outside of science. It's pseudoscience. It's not actually science. That's the point that Nathan was trying to get across. And you're saying, but how can Bob prove it? He can't. That's the point, Zinda.
I said he got upset because he couldn't move on because he couldn't prove it with the method.
Correct. But that's
Nathan's frustrating, isn't it, when you can't have the answers?
That was Nathan's point. He couldn't move on because he got frustrated because it wasn't science.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in on Nathan Oakley 1980. If you're watching this on Nathan Oakley channel, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. Massive thanks to all who hit the super chat. Check out nathanoakley.com to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate Forum. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
It falls outside of science, and you can conject on it all day if you want. But Nathan's point is, it's not science. And all Bob had to say was, right, you're right. So how do I prove that the Earth turns then? And the answer, of course, is he didn't prove that the Earth turns. He had an observation of something that you still left with. Well, what's he measuring? Is he measuring the Earth movements or is he measuring the stars? And because he hasn't moved one or the other to prove the cause of the effect that he's seeing, that means that he's not proving something within science. He's simply got a measurement with an instrument, and it's no different to measuring how long something is with a tape measure. It's not science. It's just an observation or a measurement, but it's definitely not science because he's definitely not proving a cause because he didn't manipulate it.
Yes, so you're telling me that scientific method is the only one.
No, what we're saying is you guys have hijacked the word science and implemented a shitload of pseudoscience that you pass off as science that everybody's been asleep to and not realized that it's not actually science.
The point is that science is being falsely invoked.
Yeah, I get your point, and why are you projecting it onto me?
Because that's Nathan's point that Bob didn't get last night and couldn't get past the point that he thought Nathan was attacking Bob because he thought Bob didn't understand it. But actually, they were both agreeing, but Bob couldn't get past it last night because Bob thought it was personal or Bob just thought Nathan was being a dick. Either way, the point remains. He didn't manipulate something. So it's impossible that he proved something within science because he didn't manipulate the thing that he thought he was, which was the claim against him. Everybody's saying that Bob proved that the Earth spins. No, Bob didn't make the Earth spin, did he, Zinder?
No, he didn't, but he just
right,
wanted
so he
to
couldn't have proven
move
the
on.
Earth spins then. Zinder, he couldn't have proved the Earth spins then, could he?
Well, not with the scientific method you
make sure
provided
you don't
us.
tell all your little gay friends that he didn't prove the Earth spins at all.
Why are you so triggered, dude?
Let me just ask Zinder
Yeah,
something.
but Zinder, you
I'm
see
not
that that's what the
disagreeing
problem
with
is,
you.
right?
Look, Zinder wanting
Zinder, you
to
see the
move
problem
on.
is everybody is running around saying that that's exactly what he did.
Well, to me, he proved it, but not with the scientific method.
Okay, that's where I wanted to come in. Okay, wonderful. This is more like it. So, how did he prove the Earth spins, Zinder?
He measured the light. I said not with the scientific method, right?
Don't have
He
to worry about
observed
that.
light.
Don't worry about the scientific method. I'm not going to hold you to account for it not being scientific, even if you use the wrong language at this point. Just explain in your own words, and I don't want anyone to interrupt him, how he proved Earth spins.
Well, they looked at the light or the gyroscope, let's say, measured the light that shifted. What I would expect from light, what light would do when the space moves, it is in. So that's kind of what my point is on the gyroscope. Why I think that it has to be the Earth moving, because that would be to me the only logical explanation.
I see. So just so I'm clear about what you're saying it proves. You're saying because the gyroscope, which is on a table attached to the Earth, shows a drift going through this light ring or whatever the hell it does, and that drift would demonstrate that the fixed frame of rotation, optical or otherwise, has apparently deviated because the Earth has turned underneath that fixed reference, correct? So the gyro spins, and the Earth turns underneath, and that reference frame seems to drift because the other reference frame's turned underneath, correct?
Not totally, I think. Not because the Earth rotated under the gyroscope. I think because the vector changed by the Earth spin. So that means...
But that's the same thing, isn't it? So you can't say it's not because the Earth turned underneath, but it's because the Earth turned underneath. That's double Dutch. So
it didn't turn underneath.
So let me just explain it again, Zinder. In order for an apparent deviation to be cause for Earth turn to be asserted as the cause, it would need to be in a separate reference frame, wouldn't it? The gyro spins, but it's not deviating. It just keeps spinning in the same reference frame, doesn't it, Zinder? Doesn't move actually, but demonstrates a drift because the Earth turns underneath the fixed frame of the gyro, right, Zinder?
I don't know how light works in that regard.
Not the light, not the light. The gyro. The gyro is fixed in space, isn't it, Zinder?
The ring laser gyroscope.
Oh, it seems you don't.
Do
you understand any of this,
the
Cinder?
Earth.
Are you arguing this because you think it's Earth-proof just because people have told you that?
No, I look at the light, which.
Well, how is it proving Earth turn then? If it's fixed in its rotation, so let's pretend you've got a ring of light that's going round and round and round, and that ring of light is fixed in space. That's why it's useful, right? Fixed frame in its inertial reference frame, spinning, not deviating. That's what it does, isn't it, Zinder?
The gyro itself doesn't spin.
A pointless example. I'm trying to say that what the gyro gives you is a frame that is fixed in its space. That's the point. Doesn't matter how, if it's doing it with light or with doing it with a great big ball thing with a bearing in the middle. It doesn't matter. The point of the gyro is it gives you a fixed frame, doesn't it?
Well, the ring laser gyroscope doesn't give you a fixed frame.
So what's the point of it then, Zinder? I'm now completely confused. If it doesn't give you a fixed frame, what the fuck is it useful for?
Well,
to measure the. Yeah. Go on, Kosho.
I was gonna say
no, not go on, Kosho. What do you mean, Kosho? Zinder.
No, Kosho was saying something. So
I was asking you, Zinder. You asserted that you thought this proved the Earth spins. Now I'm trying to explain to you that in order for it to be asserted as Earth spin, you have the gyro in fixed space, doing its thing, and it shows an apparent deviation. That would be because the Earth turns underneath the fixed frame of the gyro. Now, I'll go through this 6 more times. Kosho won't get to say a word until you do understand what I am telling you is happening in order for you to assert this nonsense. And when you do get there and say, I understand, Nathan, the gyro's in its fixed space, doing its thing, but because the Earth is turning, what I'm trying to prove, it shows an apparent deviation. That's how this proof works. And until you understand that, we can't move on for me to take that big shit that I'm going to take all over that. You have to understand your own bullshit first, Cinder, for me to take a dump on it afterwards. So do you understand that the gyro's in fixed space and the Earth turning underneath that fixed reference of the gyro is what gives you your example of Earth turn? Do you get that yet or not?
All right, give me 1 minute. So, after I'm going to acknowledge that, then you are going to talk about the Coriolis effect and how airplanes would travel faster from east to west or whatever. And then we are going to talk about reference frames, and I'm going to explain to you that how the Coriolis works, and then we are going to have a discussion for 2 hours. So nope, not gonna do that. But yeah, good point, Nathan. Go on, guys.
By good point, you mean you've just basically made my point for me and poo-pooed it. So, no worries, Zinder. I'll just say it with a bit more veracity. Yeah, as Zinder says, if you're going to take it that the gyro spinning in its own reference frame demonstrates Earth turning underneath, then you'd absolutely have a Coriolis effect. That's how you got the proof from the gyro, Zinder. So if you're getting it from Coriolis effect, an apparent deviation in a gyroscope, you can be damn sure that you're going to see that same effect in the other reference frame when something else goes into it. But we don't see that, do we, Zinder? So unless there is a Coriolis effect, this gyro proof is a load of old crap when you assert that it's the Earth turning underneath causing that drift. Because the Earth doesn't turn underneath, does it, Zinder? Otherwise we'd have magical flights going 3 times the speed. But we don't, do we, Zinder? We don't have an actual Coriolis effect, just a load of bollocks asserted about gyros and winds and storms, but not an actual deviation, apparent drift when you go into the second reference frame, something that's necessitated for this gyro to prove Earth spin. So if you want to claim it's Earth spin, Zinder, you better wise up pretty fast to the fact that we don't have an Earth-based Coriolis effect now, do we? Otherwise, those planes would be taking different durations. Otherwise, your drone would go up and the Earth would turn underneath it. But we don't see that, do we? We'd have to see it for your gyro to prove a damn thing. It doesn't.
Yeah, at least we can agree on something that the Earth doesn't turn underneath the gyro. So
well, that's what's needed for it to be asserted as a globe proof of the Earth turning, Zinder. So I'm glad we're all in agreement here. Just like Brenda, takes a while, bit quicker than it did with Brenda, but yes, we get to the point where Zinder asserts, exactly as Brenda did, that the gyro does not prove the Earth turns. Yes, well done.
Sure.
Nathan,
let's move on then.
Yeah, let's move on. No, let's revel in the stupidity of ballers who, like Zinder, declare that they can prove the Earth turns with a gyroscope until you point out that you don't have an Earth-based Coriolis effect, even though it's claimed we do. And I'm betting £1 that when it is claimed we do have this Earth-based Coriolis effect, we'll have some more science in quotes, won't we? We'll have some more experiments with people shooting guns, not establishing cause and effect with a hypothesis, but shooting a gun and calling it an experiment. Right, Zinder?
Yeah, sure, Nathan. Sure, Nathan.
Nathan, do you have some substance?
The Coriolis effect is really hard to understand, so I'm...
No, it's not. You have two separate reference frame. Roundabout, man holding ball, spins on roundabout, throws ball. From his vantage point, the ball appears to deviate. Looks like it's curving. It's not. It's travelling in a straight line. It only appears to deviate because the roundabout turns underneath. If a Foucault pendulum is swinging back and forth continually in the same motion, and the Earth turns underneath it, then you have a Coriolis effect. Separate reference frames. Two reference frames. One rotating underneath the other. It's not complicated. It's extremely simple. The problem being that you'd have to actually see that effect if you're to assert that a gyro proves the Earth turn. Problem being we don't see that effect. It's only when people assert it with a bullshit gyro and no adherence to a method that's empirical, just words that they say with a little gadget.
All right, then. Should your Coriolis effect affect west to east and east to west if it was real? Yes or no?
Should it affect what? A plane going into the second reference frame?
Should the Coriolis effect?
Yeah, it would. Yeah,
It doesn't work on airplanes.
It should.
It doesn't work on
It
drones.
should. No, it should. Yes or no? I didn't understand.
Should you experience a Coriolis effect if you travel into a second reference frame? Yeah. If the Earth is turning underneath, you definitely would. Fortunately, it's not, so we don't.
So it should affect it west to east and east to west.
Yeah. If you take off in a plane,
I rest my case.
If you take off in a plane,
that's everything I need to hear.
If you take off in a plane and the Earth turns underneath, then your journey's going to be a lot shorter if you're travelling with the Earth turning towards you, because the place you're travelling to is coming towards you as you travel towards it. It's amazing. It would cut down on air travel massively. Does that happen? Does the Earth come towards your plane?
Why does it not make sense, Cinder?
Well, if you did,
is it because the atmosphere is supposedly velcroed to the rotating Earth?
Yeah, I mean, I have the substance that I've been trying, because you brought up airplanes,
Adam,
and it has nothing to do.
Hey, John.
It's not applied to Coriolis.
Airplanes have nothing to do with Coriolis.
No. Well, okay, so the difference between
is that because there's no Coriolis effect?
No. I'm about to tell you why. The difference between an airplane and a ballistic is something that's traveling on its own without the.
You're gonna say it has an engine.
Well, it's maneuvering the whole time.
The fact that one has an engine and one doesn't.
No.
How does that affect what's happening?
If I'm going to explain this, you'll have to let me continue to talk.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the difference between something like a bird or an airplane or a drone, which is going along with the Earth and it's traveling according to the wind and the air and all this kind of stuff, and a ballistic, something that's been repelled one time, there's one force given to it, and it's going through the air. is that these other things have constant forces, and they're constantly changing, and so they're not traveling through different latitudes or through the different areas on the Earth to experience Coriolis more than something like a hurricane or a pendulum or a bullet, a ballistic. And so with this, it was funny because Nathan, you were saying that the gyroscope, it's supposed to be showing if something's moving, if one of the if it's moving in its reference frame, and it is showing that, and it's not moving. It's like on the table or wherever it is, and so something is turning, and there's no other explanation for that other than the building's moving or the Earth is moving, and so I don't understand what other conclusion you can come up with. The only thing that you rebutted that with is that it's not Coriolis because Coriolis doesn't exist.
No, Coriolis absolutely exists, so let's not misrepresent what I've said and point out that if you are to assert that the Earth is turning underneath the fixed frame of that gyroscope, then ipso facto you have two separate reference frames in order to achieve that. So if you have two separate reference frames with a gyroscope in its fixed reference in the one frame and the Earth turning underneath, then you will have planes taking shorter durations with the Earth turning underneath with the land coming towards them. That's how you get the effect on the gyro. So if that affects there, then that affects there, and we'll see it in the planes, but we don't.
See, the difference was what I said about the ballistics, something being propelled one time without the force. It works even more with something like a ring laser gyroscope, which has absolutely nothing. Like, it's not maneuvering all the time. It's going at the speed of light. So it's like perfectly measurable, these like precise movements.
What's going at the speed of light?
Kosho, can I ask you a question?
What's going at the speed of light?
The ring laser gyroscope, the different light that shooting to different directions. So that's how it's measured. They have like an interference pattern, and it's based off of going the speed of light. Yeah.
Hey, Kosho, can I ask you a question?
Hold on a second. Well, Kosho, what does that have to do with the two separate reference frames?
Well, that's one of the reference frames. That would be in the gyroscope.
It's one of the reference frames.
In the gyroscope.
Yeah, that's right. That's where it's moving.
Yeah,
the light's moving.
You're just making shit up like you usually do. What's your point?
Okay. Well, it's actually true, but
it's
sure,
actually true. It's actually making shit up. So what's your point?
You describe how it works, then, please.
What's your point?
I'm gonna drop. I'm gonna drop, guys, because this Kosho does talk shit, and I can't listen to him on this topic.
Yeah,
so I'm
he just
gonna
makes
leave you
shit
guys
up.
to it.
Can I ask Kosho a question? Let me ask Kosho a question real quick.
Sure.
Hey, Adam.
Can I ask him a question real quick? Kosho, what's the proof that any military, artillery, tank, sniper, in their manual where they account for the Coriolis effect, can you produce something that shows that they do account for the Coriolis effect?
Absolutely. I have something saved just now. So what'll happen is the people who are training, like for a sniper, it's not going to be in the training manual. Okay, let me finish.
Wait a minute.
If you let me finish, please.
Why should I let you finish when you just make shit up?
Don't.
And I'm retired military, right?
Afraid of what I'm going to tell you.
You're telling me, a subject matter expert, about ballistics, right?
That's fine.
I'm not going to sit here and listen to you. You're a clown.
You're afraid. You're deeply afraid of what I'm going to show you. So
deeply afraid. I'm so deeply pissed right now of your Dunning-Kruger horse shit, Kosho.
Well, go have a
make
mimosa.
Shit up on a romper room forum.
Anyhow,
who do you think you're talking to?
So if
I have got an uncle. I've got an uncle that was a tank. He worked with the M1 Abrams. I actually asked him once, when you guys were shooting artillery, did you guys account for the Coriolis effect? And he said no. It's typically the range, air temperature, air speed. That's what they account for. They don't count for a Coriolis effect. He worked with the M1 tank Abrams.
Yep, you're exactly right. Because with the with
he's
most
exactly
shots,
right.
If I don't get to fucking say
that
it,
is exactly
there's not going to
right.
be any point. Like, I have information here, but you don't. You're like, you don't want to hear it. So
I'm
what happens is
quivering in my boots.
Yeah, but Kosho, you have somebody
let me answer
on
this
the
What
panel.
happens is it's relative. It's all
The only
about.
thing I asked was that you let me
can't
answer.
see the curvature
That's it.
because it's too big. Oh, you can't see the curvature.
You want to answer
because
the own question
you're
that
not
you're
high
asking me,
enough.
or do you want me to
It's
answer
the
the question? I have it here. I have it pulled up.
Let Kosho
One at a
hang
time.
himself.
At least
Please,
let
subject
him make-
matter expert Kosho. Please
Jesus
go ahead.
Christ, dude. Right. So with all the things that you named that they account for, these things have much more of an effect, especially at the ranges that they usually shoot for. And so at most shots, something like Coriolis will have such a little effect compared with some of the other shots. But having said that, there are shots that have been made far enough to where it was impossible to make, and if you did not account for Coriolis. And I have 2 shots here, the 2 longest shots, where the snipers discuss how it was crucial for them to account for everything else, including Coriolis.
That's fine. So can I just ask you something? So the effect that they're having to account for is that they shoot a bullet into a second reference frame and the Earth turns underneath the bullet, and they need to account for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less.
So
it's actually just there's different speeds, but yeah.
Sorry, Kosho. So the bullet travels through the air and the Earth turns underneath, correct?
That's not exactly what's the consequence, but yeah. That's not
I'll say it again. The bullet travels through the air and the Earth turns underneath, correct?
Yeah, but the consequence is...
Don't tell me anything else. I'm correct, am I not? That's all I need, a yes. Yes. The bullet...
A little bit more complicated than that.
No, it's not. The bullet travels through the air. I'll say it again, and you can tell me how complicated it is, and I'll say it 15 times. Then I'll make my point when you just say yes, because I'm correct. According to you, the bullet leaves the gun in the first reference frame, and when it travels into the second reference frame, the Earth turns underneath. Correct?
Yes, it does.
Excellent. If the Earth turns underneath the bullet, then the Earth turns underneath an aeroplane. Ipso facto, if the bullet is in a second reference frame, then so is an aeroplane. Unfortunately, we do not see the effect of the Earth turning underneath an aeroplane, because if we did, the ground that you're travelling to would be hurtling towards you as the Earth turns underneath.
See, this is why Zinder left, is because he could tell you didn't understand the consequences.
Kosho, do you not understand the point, Kosho? Are you serious right now? You're saying that the Earth turns underneath the bullet, right?
Yeah, okay,
when the plane is
no, Chocolate Sand.
Kosho, when the plane is flying, where is the plane?
It's in one reference frame.
It's in the air, right? The same place that the bullet is in? Are you kidding right now, bro?
Why is it that when it changes the reference frame, what is it?
So it doesn't change. The Earth doesn't move underneath the plane because the plane has an engine. That's what you're saying?
No, that's not the.
That's exactly what you're saying. You're saying that people can
putting words in my mouth.
Kosho, you yourself said that people.
Keep putting words in my mouth. Kosho, let me explain this, man, for real.
Kosho, you yourself said that people can correct for the Coriolis when shooting a bullet.
Absolutely, they have to, and these long-range shots. Exactly right.
I got another question for Kosho.
Now, how about this?
Kosho,
Let me
ask you
explain
another
what the Coriolis is before you ask any other question, because it's not just about the Earth spinning.
Oh, no worries. Let's just clear that up immediately then. So, in order to have a Coriolis effect, you need 2 separate reference frames. So you have a roundabout turning and a man holding a ball, and he throws the ball, which appears to curve from his position because he's still on the rotating reference frame. The ball travels in a straight line, or the bullet travels in a straight line, but the Earth turns underneath. That is the Coriolis effect. It's not complicated, it's in fact very simple. The Earth turns underneath if we have a Coriolis effect. So if it turns underneath the bullet, then it turns underneath an aeroplane.
Right. And so what happens to the bullet is it goes north or south.
So yes, we see a Coriolis effect according to you. Let's ignore the rifling of the bullet. But let's just say you're right, and the Earth turns underneath the bullet because it's in a second reference frame when it left the gun. Then when a plane leaves the tarmac, it enters the same second reference frame as the bullet entered. And according to you, the Earth turns underneath. However, If the Earth was turning underneath the planes, you'd have different durations west to east and east to west, but we do not. They are approximately the same, given only wind being the differential, not the Earth turning underneath. Now, while I've said this over and over again, just for the audience's benefit, Kosho didn't shut the fuck up the entire time I said that. I muted the little bastard because he talked over every word I fucking said. So, Kosho, I'll say this because it's for the after show audience.
Just straight up.
You're a fucking cunt,
blank,
and I will kick your cunt ass out. Bye bye, Kosho, you cunt.
Thank you. Thank you. Right? That's all he does is rumpus. He's a rumpus. He makes shit up right on the fly.
He's like a nicer rumpus.
Well, the question I was going to ask him is this. He was saying a sniper, you know, a sniper can only shoot maybe a mile out, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little longer. But artillery and even tanks can go even further. So artillery doesn't account, but a sniper has to at a shorter distance.
Exactly. That's exactly what he said. That's yeah, he said it in the beginning, and then he just kept going on. I'm sitting here laughing because of what he said. He just makes shit up on the fly, like I said. I mean, he's telling me, a subject matter expert, I found expert with every single arm that the military had back when I was in, right? And he's telling me that there's a Coriolis effect. Let me just say this. Any snipers out there, I want you to come on this show, right? And I want you to show us how you account for the Coriolis effect in your shot, all right? If you can do that, I'm going to turn on my camera and I'll eat my friggin' shoe right live on air. Okay? That's my challenge. Thank you.
And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who have joined us in the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for hopefully liking, sharing, commenting, super chatting, and all the rest of the good stuff. If you need something to do after this stream has ended, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!